Thank you, Connor. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. I'm Jordan Maynard. I'm serving as interim chair. We're holding this meeting virtually, so we will do a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm here.
And good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Morning.
It is August 29th, 2024. It's approximately 10:02 a.m. And before we begin the meeting, we will call Secretary Skinner in a second. I would like to say a few words about Director Bruce Band, who is going to be leaving us. This is your last full meeting, right, Bruce?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. So, and invite my fellow commissioners to do the same, or anyone else that would like to. We celebrated Bruce last night. We had the opportunity to do so, and a couple things hit my mind. It's that he's really been a living legend, and he's given 10 plus years to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. When I first met him, he brought me a book, and he brought me a DVD, a History Channel DVD, and I watched it and found that he was featured in it. So even the History Channel knew what contributions he gives to this industry. I called him this last night. I called him this in the card that I wrote, and I'll say it now publicly. He's been the engine of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. It's really kept the place going. And we're getting ready to hit $2 billion in tax revenue that's went back to the Commonwealth. And that money can be traced back to a lot of the work that Bruce has done. And we're forever grateful for his service. And there have been many people in the Commonwealth who've benefited from it. And not to just mention, he's a fun guy, and there's a lot of fun people in Massachusetts who are benefiting from his sense of humor and his ability to keep things light, even on the hardest days. And so with that, Bruce, we're going to miss you. And I'm going to invite the other commissioners to say what they want to say. Commissioner O'Brien.
Sure. Good morning, Bruce. I'm sorry I couldn't be there last night. I sent some private words to Bruce, but I have one vivid memory of Bruce's expertise, which was getting EBH launched and trying to figure out what needed to happen before that could, open its doors effectively and safely. While everyone was cooperative, it was a pretty tense exchange happening in the wee hours of the morning at one point, pushing back. And Bruce very, very calmly and humbly commented, and I don't remember the number. I want to say it was like your 25th opening. I mean, it was dozens. And the room went silent. Everyone knew what their marching orders were at that point, because if Bruce said you needed to do it to open your doors, there was absolutely nothing else to say about it. And everyone went off and did what they needed to do and came back, and we opened on time. I didn't always agree with the New Jersey way, as Bruce knows, but I always wanted to hear what he had to say because of his level of experience. I enjoyed talking to you about not only that, but your family and where you're going to be going in retirement. And while we'll miss your expertise here, very, very lucky grandkids are going to have you, and enjoy the time that comes. You've served New Jersey and the Commonwealth in this industry for decades. So a rest well-deserved, Bruce.
Thank you.
Well said by Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioners, anything to add?
Bruce, I too, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there last night, but I want to thank you for your years of service here in Massachusetts. When you think back over the last 10 years of what's happened here and the thumbprint that you have put not only on our brick and mortars, but on our sports wagering world, it's something that I don't think would have happened without your knowledge, and certainly without the education that you gave all of us through your history down in New Jersey and here in Massachusetts. As one of the newer commissioners here on the commission, your help was invaluable. And I will say that the stories that you have locked in that head of yours, you should write a book, and you should share those stories for anybody who loves casinos and the stories that go with them. Yours are the best. And, I've heard from a lot of people in the industry of their respect for you and the experience that you brought to them that made them better people in the industry of casino gaming and now in sports wagering. So I, for one, want to thank you for all that you have shared with me. You have made me a better commissioner because of your experience, and you will be sorely missed here at the Mass Gaming Commission. I too wish you the very, very best now in your retirement and any future endeavor you may have.
Thank you, Brian.
Commissioner Skinner.
I'll jump in. Good morning, Bruce. We had a really nice time celebrating you last night. Glad to have been in the room. It was really a very nice touch to see fellow, former commissioners in the room who came out to also celebrate with us. I'm a bit envious. As a newer commissioner, I don't have fond memories of being in the trenches with you back then and the other commissioners. I wish I did. Eileen, you were right on target with your comments because that's exactly the way the former commissioners described Bruce and his calm manner and just his innate ability to handle a situation no matter how stressful it may have seemed. The time I've spent with you here as a commissioner, Bruce, has been invaluable. I thank you for your expertise. I thank you for pretty much having things on the casino side anyway, ready-made for commissioners like me and Commissioner Hill to just step in and know that everything is running steadily. With sports wagering, you applied that calm manner and nature to any situation that the commission faced in getting that launched. And so just a really sincere thank you for everything you've done for this agency. And thank you for being a friend. And I will miss your stories for sure. So good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you, Nikisha.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I see Bert Kane has his mic off. Maybe he would like to say something. Bert?
Oh, well, I spoke a little bit at length last night. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Bruce and I go back, as we know now, some 42 years. We started in those early days in Atlantic City, and we were able to come up here and do what we called our New England adventure together. And yeah, just working with Bruce, the knowledge he shared with me as a mentor, a coach, a guide. So obviously he's going to be missed. And I wish Bruce, obviously, all the best.
Yeah. And I would like to thank all you for the kind words and the great work of the staff that we have up here. And I wouldn't have been successful without having good people around me and the work that they did, like Bert and my whole staff here with sports wagering would have never gotten off the ground without their hard work. So thanks to all of them as well. Thank you.
Bruce, I see Councilor Grossman has his mic off. He may want to add something too, even though you just get your words. But...
Just real quick, and yeah, Bruce, I just wanted to note that I happen to predate Bruce by a bit here. And I remember in the early days when we were building this whole thing out, everything was going well. But I remember kind of looking around and wondering to myself anyway, how we were really going to understand the casino part of it. We could build out an organization and create a licensing scheme and all this other great stuff, but none of us really had any experience with casinos or gambling or any of that kind of good stuff. And so one day, Bruce Band comes walking through the door, and I remember vividly saying to myself, you know what, we're going to be okay. And thanks to you, Bruce, and the other guy you brought with you from New Jersey, we were more than okay. We've been great. So thank you for all of your valuable contributions, your leadership, And thank you for being a friend to me and always supporting me. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Todd.
Anyone else before we close the floor and move on to Commissioner Skinner? Bruce, anything else?
No, I think I said it all last night to everybody. Appreciate all the kind remarks and everything, and I certainly will miss this whole team up here.
Well, we're going to miss you too, and you've left us in a really good position. Now, let's see if we can keep it.
Yes, I have no doubt. People like Burke and Crystal and Lewis and that whole group, you won't have any problems.
Well, thank you again for your service, and we'll be calling you.
Yeah.
We know how to get up with you. All right. With that said, we're going to move to Secretary Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to move, but first, let me turn to my fellow commissioners to confirm that they've had an opportunity to review all of the minutes. There are 4 sets, and whether or not they have any suggested changes, edits, anything like that. No? Okay.
I will say thank you for getting these really early to us because they were voluminous and it gave us time to look over them. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was the intent. Okay. So I move that the commission approve the executive session minutes from the December 19th, 2022, the September 19th, 2023, September 21st, 2023, and November 7th, 2023 meetings, that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
I will just make one change for the record. You started, but you said executive session, I believe.
Did I? I'm sorry.
You meant, I knew you meant public meeting. So with that amendment, if you're both okay with that.
I accept your amendment. Thank you.
Right. And the second from Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner O'Brien.
Yep. Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes. 4-0. All right, we're going to turn it over to Commissioner Hill. Do you have anything on the legislative front?
No report today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. All right, we are now going to turn it over to, I know Commissioner O'Brien added this to the agenda, and Councilor Grossman. Todd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to everyone. So we're here to talk about the independent monitor condition that was affixed to the license of WinMass LLC by way of the written decision dated April 30th, 2019. And as everyone will recall, of course, that was done after an extensive adjudicatory hearing. And really, pardon me, tremendous work by the Gaming Commission at the time, and then over the years to monitor the status of the company with the great work of the independent monitor team from Miller and Chevalier. So as the commission will, of course, recall, there were a number of conditions that were included in the written decision. And so the ultimate question became whether Wynn Resorts has satisfied those conditions and what the status of affairs is at the moment. And before I jump into everything here, I just wanted to recognize that Jackie Crum has joined us, and I believe she has, there are a number of other members from the Wynn Resorts team. So maybe I just pause for a moment to welcome Jackie and allow you a chance to just introduce the members with you.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you for this opportunity today. I'm joined here by Ellen Whittemore. Ellen, there you are. Ellen is our Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Wynn Resorts, and Susie McDaniel, who's our Executive Vice President of People and Culture. That's a new title for North America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jackie. Welcome, Susie and Ellen. Nice to see you, as always. I thought Mr. Chair and members of the commission, it might be helpful just for a moment just to walk through some of the conditions. And then there are a couple of quick passages from the most recent independent monitor report that I thought would be helpful just to take a quick look at, and then turn it back over to you for further discussion. So you'll recall there were a handful of conditions. Most of the conditions related to the establishment of the independent monitor and the work that the monitor will do, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But there are a couple of other things just to recall at the moment. First, there were 2 substantial fines that were imposed in that decision. It's my understanding that both of those have certainly been paid. One of the important conditions that the commission fixed was that the position of chair of the board of directors and the CEO of the company were to be separated, meaning to be held by separate individuals. That has been done, and I have seen evidence that that is in the corporate guidelines. So that is that has been satisfied as well. Mr. Maddox was required to undergo professional coaching, it is my understanding that he has in fact done that. They've done that for a number of others as well, and I do believe that they have satisfied that condition. There was a condition that the company provide the commission with reports of attendance of the members of its board of directors and subcommittees at all of their meetings. And it is my understanding that all of those attendance records are actually contained in the minutes of those subject meetings that we do have in our possession with the IEB. Beyond that, of course, there was a condition that the independent monitor comprehensively review the company, and the decision went into great detail as to what exactly the monitor was supposed to be looking at. And I didn't plan on getting too much into that. I think we're all familiar with that. Alejandra and her great team reported back to us. I think it was in May or early June when she went through the report with us. The report itself is dated May 31st of this year. And it was a report that ultimately concluded that Wynn had satisfied all of the principles that she and her team had set out to take a look at. There are just a few things I wanted to read, as I mentioned, and we can kind of go from there. So just a couple of things right from the report. The first thing they noted is that the company now has in place appropriate and sustainable processes that are designed specifically to identify HR-related risks like sexual harassment and discrimination, and bolster the company's capabilities to mitigate those risks. They went on to say the company has successfully transitioned from a founder-led organization to one where employees are encouraged to take ownership over their workplace and are empowered to speak up, and managers and supervisors are instructed to take swift action. And further, that the company has satisfied the monitor's recommendations over the course of the monitorship and solidified the authority, oversight, and independence of key gatekeepers for its HRCP, meaning its Human Resources Compliance policy, in a program, in a way that enhances the program's sustainability. They went on to conclude that the company has satisfied the monitor's recommendations and implemented an HRCP framework considered by the monitor to be necessary to correct the deficiencies identified in the MGC's decision and order, the baseline assessment, and subsequent phases. Importantly, the company, through its leadership, has demonstrated to the monitor a sincere commitment to maintain its HRCP and to continue to promote the values and principles that underlie it. Indeed, the monitor has already seen evidence of the company looking beyond the recommendations and, through its own initiative, identifying opportunities to build up and strengthen the firm foundation laid during the monitorship. That is the conclusion. Needless to say, the report goes into great detail about each of the things that the monitor looked at, and ultimately concluded that the company has satisfied all of the recommendations that the monitor set out. So with that, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I'll turn it back over to you, but it appears to me that the company has satisfied all of the conditions that were set out in the Commission's 2019 decision.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman. Commissioner O'Brien, I see you taking your mic off.
Sure. No, so thank you, Todd. I had asked for this to be put on to just make sure that we officially close the loop. The 5 years would officially hit next Thursday on the 5th of September. The recommendation from the monitor, the conclusion at the last presentation was that the licensee had satisfied the conditions. So we have talked about that in general terms, but as Todd just listed, there were some other, conditions that were also attached to the license, some of which also will sort of self-effectuate, right? The payment of the fines, things relating to mathematics, et cetera. I think from my view, I'm satisfied that they've met the conditions. The only query really, Todd, is the sort of ongoing request that those positions be separated, right? President and CEO. They are doing that. That's part of their plan. Whether we would want to continue that or not, I believe that had a timeline on it, Todd, did it not?
It did. It actually, I believe it said for the full 15-year term of the license.
Of the license, right. So that would survive. Most everything else has already sort of self-executed effective on September 5th. So I'm satisfied with that. That one condition continues to attach for the duration of the first 15 years. And in my view, the 5 years and what the licensee did in terms of cooperating with the independent monitor, the progress that they've made in this area, I am satisfied that we can move forward without having any sort of adjudicatory hearing to discuss any issues that were raised in the monitor in the last report. So I put that out there from where I'm sitting today so that we can sort of formally check this off the list and just have that one structural condition just attached for the first 15 years.
Commissioners, any reaction to the suggestion by Commissioner O'Brien?
I would agree with her suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Getting a nod from Commissioner Skinner.
As do I.
I will take the time to say that Encore Boston Harbor has been extremely, extremely helpful in this process. And as Commissioner O'Brien pointed out, have addressed all the issues that the commission brought up some time ago. And we are appreciative of their partnership and their willingness to work through this. And I would agree with the suggestion. Would EBH like to say anything? Have anything to add?
Sure. If I could start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ellen or Susie. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for that. It wasn't just an EBH effort. It was an entire effort led by Ellen and Susie. And so I'm glad that they could be here today to wrap this up as well. Ellen?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing us the opportunity to just say a few things. 5 years ago, we sat before the commission and committed to making the necessary changes to the workplace culture of Wynn Resorts. And I'm very pleased with the efforts that our human resource and legal teams have made to make Wynn an employer of choice. We very much appreciate the assistance of the monitor, Alejandra and her team, in identifying areas of improvement, which we were able to implement. And then, of course, as the monitor mentioned, there were certain things that we identified on our own, which we implemented, which further enhanced it. And we have a saying that, care about everyone and everything. And I think the culture of how we treat our 15,000 United States employees is one of value. We value our employees, and we're very proud of them, and we're proud of the company. And so we do appreciate the confidence and the trust that the Massachusetts Gaming Commission put in us 5 years ago. And so we thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Jackie, for pointing out that Wynn Resorts and Encore Boston Harbor are very good partners and helped with this compliance. Anything to add, commissioners? Anything to add? Wynn Resorts or Encore? All right. Well, I don't think that we have anything formal to do here, do we, Councilor Grossman?
No, I think this is just concluded. There's no further action that will be taken by the monitor, and this chapter, I think, is essentially closed.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman. And we're lucky to have Encore Boston Harbor here in the Commonwealth.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Congratulations on the new title.
Thank you. I hope y'all have a great day. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. We are now, and I can explain my shirt, Game Sense shirt. I see Commissioner Hill has one on and Director Vanderlinden has one on. We're going to kick it over to Director Mark Vanderlinden for a couple issues, but he's going to start out with Responsible Gaming Education Month. And
yes.
So, good morning, Director Vanderlinden.
Good morning, Chair Maynard. Good morning, commissioners. Yeah, so I have two items. I want to kick it off with a little talk about Responsible Gaming Education Month, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rachel Volberg to share one of the latest research studies that we have looking at gambling and problem gambling in Massachusetts, the results of 3 online panels that we've done. So first, September is Responsible Gaming Education Month. And Responsible Gaming Education Month actually originates with the American Gaming Association. And they're celebrating 26 years highlighting responsible gaming and promoting responsible gaming nationwide, bringing together gaming industry, advocate groups, regulators, and other key stakeholders to promote transparency and gambling literacy. In Massachusetts and in the MGC, we believe that safer gambling is a shared responsibility. And this differs a little bit from some of the traditional historical paradigms, which place the onus of responsible gaming on the individual. So our definition of responsible gaming is outlined in our responsible gaming framework. The first responsible gaming framework in Massachusetts was published back in 2014, updated in 2018, and we're actually working on an update that recognizes some of the changes in the gambling landscape and research that's been created. But our definition is the provision of gambling services designed to encourage players to maintain their gambling at healthy levels and minimize harm. That's the responsibility. It's not on the individual. It's on us. It's on the Gaming Commission to make sure the responsibility is on the Gaming Commission. It's on our operators to make sure that the way in which we provide gambling opportunities in the Commonwealth minimizes harm and promotes safer levels of gambling. The MGC does have this important responsible gaming framework that has been a foundation. The aims of our responsible gaming framework are to create an effective, sustainable, measurable, socially responsible, and accountable approach to gambling. And we need to understand how do we do this, and that's where I think our research agenda comes into it. The framework, our services are informed by our annual research agenda, and so we don't just sit back and say, here are some responsible gaming programs. We want to evaluate those. And you've seen results of that a couple times in the last year. We did an evaluation of the Game Sense program. So it's not the numbers of individuals that engage with our Game Sense program and our Game Sense advisors is impressive. You know, it's around 80,000 people in the last fiscal year engaged with our Game Sense advisors on meaningful conversations related to their gambling, related to responsible gaming. But our evaluation would further show that these are effective. These interactions actually mean something, that game sense advisors, following an encounter with a game sense advisor, that they feel more informed about their gambling behavior. They're more attuned to what responsible gaming is and how to use that when they head out onto the gaming floor. We know that our Play My Way, we launched Play My Way back in 2015 without a clear understanding of what the full impact would be. An evaluation that was released by Dr. Wall last year said that, people who enroll in Play My Way spend less money, but visit the casino roughly the same amount. They also feel a greater loyalty to Massachusetts casinos for offering these types of responsible gaming programs. That is really important, that not only are we accomplishing our goals of creating an environment which reduces that level of risk, that they're feeling better about visits to the casinos that we regulate in Massachusetts. So, I mentioned that this framework has been important. We're working on a revision to this framework that incorporates this type of data, because this type of data is really important, that also tells us where we need to go. How do we improve Play My Way? How do we improve the Game Sense program? So that's forthcoming. It's pulling together the findings of our robust research agenda in order to advance that. RGEM is the month of September, and so I also just want to call out the incredible work of our Game Sense team and our partnership with each of the casinos, each of the sports wagering operators, and the Mass Council on Gaming and Health. It's a jam-packed month within our casinos on a range of different activities. They have countless hours at each of them dedicated to really pushing this out. And there's a new focus with our sports wagering operators that hasn't been there in the past, but this year we're really turning our attention much more to how do we partner with each of these operators in order to promote safer levels of gambling. So a shout out to our sports wagering operators and partnering with us on that, and a shout out to the Mass Council for helping direct that, and a shout out to Long Band for as our responsible gaming manager, helping to put all of those pieces together. So happy Responsible Gaming Education Month.
Thank you, Director Van der Linden. And it's always good to remind ourselves of the great work that's been done here at the Commission, the foresight of the legislature, and now 3 governors interest in this. And so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything to add, commissioners, before we turn to, I'm sure, Dr. Volberg? All right, Mark.
Okay. Dr. Volberg is going to share with us today findings from the results of 3 online panels which explore gambling and problem gambling in Massachusetts. I think I'm just going to turn it over to you, Dr. Volberg, because you always do such a great job of teeing this up that I'll just let you do that. So, Dr. Volberg.
Okay, drop me on my head. Thank you, Mark.
I would never do that, Rachel.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Maynard and commissioners. Welcome to almost the end of the summer. I can't believe it's the end of August. I'm delighted to be here today to present the results of this particular piece of analysis that we did using data from 3 online panel surveys amongst adults in Massachusetts. I just want to start by thanking my entire Sigma research team. They're all out and about doing other things today, so no one is here to keep me on a short leash. But every single member of the Sigma team has been with us for an extended lift that we had on the research end getting the Sigma project off the ground. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully the technology will work for me.
Commissioners, I'll say when Dr. Volberg shares this, if there's anything you want to comment on or question, just chime in since we can't see each other.
Okay, can you see my screen or my slides?
Looks great.
Okay, very good. You wouldn't think I'd be nervous. I've done this many times, but I always get nervous about the technology. So this first slide presents an overview of my talk today, which, as I said, will focus on the results of the 3 panel surveys that we have conducted most recently in Massachusetts. The first couple of slides are going to sort of look carefully at the methodology that we used because it is a very different approach than the general population surveys that we've taken in the past. Then the presentation itself will focus on the findings regarding attitudes, gambling behavior, and gambling problems and harms. And then we'll conclude with a discussion of the results and some suggestions about future directions. So as we all learned in 2020 and since, monitoring and surveillance are critical tools in the public health armamentarium. The Sigma team has been working for some time to figure out how to best monitor changes in gambling participation and problem gambling prevalence in Massachusetts on a regular basis, given the high cost and slow turnaround time of population surveys, as well as declining response rates, which have raised concerns about potential biases in those surveys. So online panels consist of groups of people recruited to participate in online surveys in return for compensation. Sociodemographic and behavioral information is collected from panel members so that a stratified sample can be selected. The main limitation of online panels, though, is that the panels are not randomly selected, but instead they have volunteered to participate, usually in a large number of surveys. So while online panel companies generally stratify the samples to be demographically representative, there are remaining significant behavioral biases that can't be corrected by either stratification or by statistical weighting. For example, online panel members have much higher levels of psychological and physical pathology than are found in the general population. They tend to have very high rates of substance use, mental health problems, and as you'll see, gambling involvement and gambling problems. So our team recently concluded that while online panel surveys can't be used to establish accurate gambling participation and problem gambling prevalence rates, they hold considerable value as a way to identify the direction of changes in attitudes, behaviors, and harms on a regular basis. So fielding annual online panel surveys, as we have done since 2022, is a time and cost-effective way of maintaining regular surveillance and providing regulators and policymakers with crucial information to target gambling harm mitigation strategies. In other words, this approach takes advantage of a bug in the nature of online panels and turns it into a feature. So as I mentioned, there have been 3 online panels carried out in Massachusetts. I'm sorry, yes, 3 since 2013 as part of the Sigma study. The baseline online panel survey was fielded in 2013 and 2014 simultaneously with the baseline general population survey, and the follow-up online panel survey was fielded in 2022 at the same time as the follow-up general population survey. The third online panel survey was fielded in 2023. There's no corresponding general population survey because we concluded that that the online panel survey would be adequate to our purposes for a period of time. And then just to give you a heads up, we fielded a 2024 online panel survey that will be featured in some upcoming reports that we have in FY25. And we are hoping to also field or we're planning to also field a 5th online panel survey as one of our 2025 deliverables. So this slide and the next one present information about how the survey was conducted. Population surveys are described to potential respondents as surveys about health and recreation, so as not to over-recruit gamblers. The online panel survey is described to respondents as a gambling survey in order to actually over-recruit gamblers. So the questionnaire was actually was pretty much identical in the online panel surveys and the general population surveys, except for what people were told the survey was about. So in doing the baseline online panel survey, the data were collected by a company called Ipsos. The data collection in 22 and 23 was conducted by Qualtrics. And I've provided information here about the size of each sample. So in 2014, the baseline online panel survey achieved a sample size of 5,046 and somewhat smaller sample sizes in 2022 and 2023. So as anticipated, there were substantial differences in both gambling participation and problem gambling prevalence between the population surveys carried out in Massachusetts and the online panel surveys. This table compares gambling groups in the population surveys and in the online panel surveys. At the top are the baseline data, and below that are the follow-up data. Briefly, overall gambling participation among the online panelists in 2014 was higher than in the Massachusetts population in 2013. Additionally, as you can see, the prevalence of at-risk gambling and problem gambling among the panelists in 2014 was significantly higher than in the adult population. As we noted in our report on the 2021 population survey, there was a substantial decrease in overall gambling participation in the Massachusetts adult population between 2013 and 2021 from 73% to 60%, as well as decreases, as you will recall, in participation in specific types of gambling. And we speculated at that time or hypothesized that those declines were due, at least in part, to the lingering impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic at the time that we went into the field with the 2021 population survey. As you can see, though, there was no difference in overall gambling participation in the 2014 and 2022 online panel surveys, with 78% or almost 79% of panelists in both of those years having gambled in the past year. In contrast to the population surveys, there were changes in the proportion of online panelists classified as problem gamblers in 2022 compared to 2014. You can see the prevalence rate in the online panels went from 6% to 11%. We don't have a population comparison for the 2023 panel survey, as I mentioned. But in 2023, overall gambling participation among the panelists in the past year was higher than in 2022. It was up to 82%. And the problem gambling prevalence rate in 2023 was 14.5%, compared to the 11% in 2022.
Rachel, okay, I just wanted to make sure you were advancing the slide. Got it.
Sorry?
I just wanted to make sure you were advancing the slide right.
Yes, I'm about to. So here's the next slide. So we focus our analysis in this report on the subset of panelists who had gambled monthly or more often in the past year. The reason for that was to sort of narrow the focus to people who gamble regularly in the general or in the online panels, with the assumption underlying that regular gamblers in the panels were probably more like regular gamblers in the general population than would be true for the panels in general. So we did, as you can see, eliminate a small number of respondents in the 2023 panel who had the same IP address as panelists in 2022, which suggested that they may have participated in both surveys. So we wanted to eliminate that potential source of confusion. The focus is intended to highlight changes in the behavior and experiences of the most heavily involved gamblers in the panels. So monthly gamblers, just to give you some demographics, in the 2014 online survey were more likely than the general population to be male. They were less likely to be under the age of 35, more likely to be white, more likely to be well educated, and less likely to have incomes higher than $50,000. In 2022 and 23, monthly gamblers in the online panels were more likely than the population to be male, to be under the age of 35, to have obtained some college education, and less likely to be Asian and to have annual household incomes of 50,000 or more. So now to the results. This first topic focuses on attitudes towards gambling among monthly gamblers in the online panels. Online panelists were asked several questions about their views of gambling, assessing panelists' beliefs about the overall benefit or harm of gambling in society, about legalized gambling in general, and about the availability of gambling in Massachusetts. Panelists were also asked about their opinion about the overall impact of casinos in Massachusetts and about the most positive and negative impacts of those casinos in the Commonwealth. This graph presents responses to the question about the overall availability of gambling in Massachusetts and shows that while the proportion of monthly gamblers who felt that the current availability of gambling was fine did not change, there were increases in the proportion of monthly gamblers who felt that gambling was not available enough, and decreases in the proportion who felt that gambling was too widely available. This graph presents responses to a question about the overall benefits and harms of casino gambling in Massachusetts and shows that there was an increase in the proportion of monthly gamblers who felt that the harms of gambling outweigh the benefits, and a decrease in the proportion of monthly gamblers who felt that the benefits and harms were about equal. And finally, this graph presents responses to a question about the overall impact of casinos in Massachusetts and shows that there was a decrease in the proportion of monthly gamblers who felt that the overall impact of casinos was beneficial, and an increase in the proportion who felt that the impact of casinos had been neither beneficial nor harmful. So now let's turn and look at the gambling behavior of the monthly gamblers in the online panels. And just to be clear, we provide every potential respondent in all of our surveys with a definition of what we mean by gambling. So to sort of frame the issue for everybody in the same way. And we assessed past year participation, frequency of participation, and expenditures on quite a large number of activities. So The three surveys are shown at the top of the chart, top of the table, and then the gambling activities are along the side. And this table shows that differences between 2014 and 2022 for most of these activities were statistically significant. There were decreases between 2014 and 2022 for all lottery play, traditional lottery play, which is the mega jackpot games, instant lottery games, and raffles. There were significant increases between 2014 and 2022 for daily lottery games, sports betting, private wagering, horse racing, bingo, and online gambling. There were no significant decreases in participation in specific types of gambling between 2022 and 2023. There were significant increases in daily lottery games, raffles, electronic gaming machines or EGMs, casino table games, sports betting, private wagering, horse racing, bingo, and online gambling. I do want to just mention two things. One is that starting in 2022, we asked respondents not about casino gambling in general, but specifically about slot machines and table games. So that's why there's a challenge, or there's no comparison from 2014 to 22 and 23. Another important thing to note is that we changed the wording of the question about sports betting between the 2014 and 2022 online panels because of the pending change in what was going to be sports betting legalization in Massachusetts. So part of the change in participation, we believe, in sports betting is a result of even that just fairly minor change in the wording of the question. In addition to gambling participation, it's helpful to consider gambling intensity. Gambling intensity, in our definition, includes the number of gambling formats that a person has engaged with in the past year and the maximum frequency. That is the number of days gambled in the past year. So this table shows comparisons in those gambling intensity measures across the three online panels, and shows that the mean number of gambling formats that monthly gamblers in the panels had done in the past year increased over time from 3.6 in 2014, that is, they averaged 3.6 different gambling activities, to up to 6 gambling activities in the 2023 survey. Similarly, the number of days gambled in the past year increased among monthly gamblers across the surveys, and gambling expenditures rose between 2014 and 2022, and then dropped in 2023, although not as low as in 2014. I want to turn the focus now to sports betting behavior among the monthly gamblers in the online panels. This table shows that in 2014, over 3/4 of monthly gamblers had not gambled on sports in the past year, although 14% had gambled on sports at least monthly or weekly. So that was 2014. That was 10 years ago. In 2022, the proportion of monthly gamblers in the online panel who had not gambled on sports in the past year fell, and there were increases in the proportion of monthly gamblers who had gambled on sports at least monthly or weekly. In 2023, the proportion of monthly gamblers who had not gambled on sports in the past years fell again, and there were increases again in the proportion of panelists who had gambled on sports at least monthly or weekly. So the lower half of the table shows some specific information about the types of sports betting that panelists had engaged in, and shows that in 2022 and 2023, which is the 2 years that we asked these questions, monthly gamblers who had bet on sports in the past year were most likely to have bet on professional sports events, followed by sports parlays, which is multiple bets on the same event, and fantasy sports. With the exception of sports parlays, differences between 2022 and 2023 in the types of sports betting engaged in were not statistically significant. And then to elucidate the question of recapture of sports betting behavior via legalization of sports betting in Massachusetts, we divided the types of sports betting included in the panel surveys into legal and illegal activities. So I've shaded in gray at the top of the table the activities that we classified as legal, and the unshaded activities are those that we deemed to be illegal. And panelists were classified based on their answers to whether they had bet on sports in these ways. We classified them as having done no sports betting, having done any legal sports betting, including legal venues in other jurisdictions, having done both legal and illegal sports betting, and then illegal sports betting only, so based on their responses to these questions. The lower half of the table shows that there was an increase in the proportion of monthly gamblers in the online panels who had engaged in any legal sports betting between 2022 and 2023. There was no change in the proportion of monthly gamblers who had engaged in any illegal sports betting, and a decrease in the proportion of monthly gamblers who engaged only in illegal sports betting. So finally, in response to a question in the 2023 survey, that's down at the bottom of the table, with only results from 2023, 53% of monthly gamblers in that panel indicated that if Massachusetts had not legalized sports betting, they would have gambled on sports in person in other states or online with an out-of-state operator. Now, taken together, these data suggest that there has not been, or had not been in 2023, a substantial recapture of illegal sports betting revenues in Massachusetts between 2022 and 2023. However, as many jurisdictions internationally have found, it can take a substantial period of time for sports bettors to migrate fully from non-regulated to regulated providers. And it will be interesting to examine this question as we analyze the 2024 panel data. And then our final focus today is on gambling problems and gambling harms among monthly gamblers in the online panels. And this is just a reminder slide to show you the typology that we use in the Sigma study, which is based on the 14-item validated measure called the Problem and Pathological Gambling Measure, which, unlike most other problem gambling measures, which are just added scores, this measure, the PPGM, explicitly requires evidence of both impaired control and significant negative consequences to be classified as a problem gambler. So I'm a little concerned about time. I'm not going to give you too much more detail about this, but move on to the results. This table presents information about the prevalence of recreational, at-risk, and problem gambling among monthly gamblers in the online panels. The table shows that the prevalence of problem gambling among monthly gamblers increased between 2014 and 2022 from 12.7% to 20.9%, and increased again between 2022 and 2023. In parallel with these changes, recreational gambling decreased between 2014 and 2022 and decreased again in 2023. with interestingly no change in the proportion of monthly gamblers in the online panels who are classified as at-risk gamblers. And just by way of comparison, I want to remind you that the prevalence of at-risk gambling in the adult population in Massachusetts in 2021, when we did our last population survey, the prevalence of at-risk gambling was 8.5%, and the prevalence of problem gambling was 1.4%. This table shows that the proportion of monthly gamblers in the online panels endorsing items indicating different types of gambling-related harm increased between 2014 and 2023. So these are sort of areas where gambling harms have been identified across the international literature. There were increases between 2014 and 2022 in the proportion of monthly gamblers endorsing financial harms, emotional or psychological harms, family or relationship harms, work or school-related harms, and harms related to illegal activity. Between 2022 and 2023, there was an increase in the proportion of monthly gamblers reporting family and relationship harms. Interestingly, health-related harms was the only area without an increase among monthly gamblers in the online panels. So to summarize, attitudes among monthly gamblers in the online panels, and possibly in the population, have grown more negative, with more monthly gamblers believing that gambling harm outweighs the benefits, and fewer monthly gamblers believing that all types of gambling should be legal. Between 2022 and 2023, there were increases in gambling participation among monthly gamblers in a wide range of gambling activities, suggesting that the lingering impact of COVID-19 on gambling behavior among monthly gamblers in Massachusetts may be diminishing. There was an increase in sports betting participation among monthly gamblers, but there does not yet appear to have been a substantial recapture of sports betting revenues among monthly gamblers in the wake of legalization, although there has been a reduction in the proportion of sports bettors among monthly gamblers who only gambled on sports illegally. And then finally, there may have been an increase in people experiencing gambling harms and gambling problems among monthly gamblers between 2014 and 2023. So as always, we plan to conduct further analysis of the online panel data. One direction we are particularly interested in pursuing is comparing predictors for at-risk and problem gambling among monthly gamblers in the online panels and comparing those predictors to predictors from the general population surveys to see if there are differences there. We also plan to publish future brief reports like this one, focused on the online panels that we have conducted in 2024 and will be conducting in 2025. And those results, we believe, will serve as an important ongoing early warning system to provide the Gaming Commission with timely information for its efforts at gambling harm minimization and mitigation. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report, and I look forward to your questions. And I'm going to take my slides down now and stop sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. Commissioners, I know that speaking as one commissioner, there's so much information in there that it's hard to really start with what piques our interest. Commissioner Hill.
Well, you're right. There's a lot of information. And as always, Dr. Goldberg, we appreciate you coming before us. I always find these to be so interesting. A couple of things that really stuck out to me right out of the box is like I saw the increase in horse racing bets, which for me was a little puzzling because the horse industry, we're seeing has kind of declined over the country. and yet we're seeing an increase in the betting on that. So I'm going to look into that by talking with Dr. Lightbaum and reaching out to others to see if they're seeing that trend as well as you saw it.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner, if I can just comment on that. One of the very interesting things that came out of the pandemic gambling research is that horse race betting is something that people can do in quite a number of jurisdictions online. And so we did not make a distinction in assessing horse race betting behavior, whether people were betting on simulcast and with advanced deposit wagering online, or if they were going to OTB parlors or to racetracks to observe live racing. So I just want to caveat that and make sure you're aware of that as you go down that road.
Thank you. I also noticed a considerable increase, and not surprisingly, in sports parlays. Many of the ads that we see on TV now have to do with parlays. And for those who don't know what parlay is, if you go and Google it, holy Toledo, what you see as explanations, but more importantly, tutors showing you how to parlay in ways that even I didn't know when I first started knowing about parlays. And then I did see a little bit, although minor, the illegal betting. There was some increases I saw. And it begs the question, why is that? Is it because of taxation? Is it for easy way of, going to your bookie? I don't know what the answer is. But that was a little interesting to see that since we have legal betting, that we are still seeing an increase in illegal betting. So I think that's something that the commission is going to have to take a hard look at, as we move forward. But I'm not going to hog this discussion. That was just 3 things that popped out quickly. I could talk about probably 7 or 8 other things, but I want to obviously allow my other colleagues to be part of this conversation. But thank you as always. This was great information for us that will allow us to use this information as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien?
So just to jump off from what Commissioner Hill was just saying, I'm really looking forward to when you do the deeper dive into some of the stats, particularly legal versus illegal market, because there were some stats on the last slide that you were showing us in terms of the drop in illegality use. So, and then there seemed to be an uptick in the use of in-state legal online sports betting. So maybe we're not capturing the revenue yet, but I'd be curious to see as we go forward, can you parse out some of those stats that seem to contradict each other a little bit and then see where the revenue really is, because some of those stats would indicate we're on a trend to recapture it. I also wonder if uptick in online illegal, and we just addressed the fact, right, putting seal on and trying to do PSAs to get people to understand how they can identify a legal online market, whether there's sort of some destigmatization to online use in general, which then caused an uptick in overall usage, which may have spilled over into the illegal market. And I think it behooves us to do what we can to continue to educate people about the RG you're talking about, Mark, and then also just that other layer of legal versus illegal, because I do think it's more complicated for consumers in the online space and sports betting than obviously walking down to a bookie is what you're doing. You're going into an illegal place as opposed to the casino. But I do think we need to do more. We are, but I think we need to continue to do that and educate consumers in Massachusetts. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
Can I just respond to just real quick? I mean, it is really important to note that there was FY22, there was a 23, and those are really early days in sports wagering in Massachusetts. And as Dr. Volberg pointed out, it takes a while for people to transition from the illegal to legal market. It'll be fascinating to see what the trajectory of that data is in the 24 and 25 surveys. So it's wonderful to have this look kind of across spanning a number of years dating back to sort of that initial baseline in 2014. But yeah, I completely concur with what you're saying. Let's keep an eye on that.
And I, Director Van der Linden, I picked up also one on Commissioner Hill and Commissioner O'Brien picked up on, which was, a lot of the reason we want to make sure this is done and done correctly, sports wagering, is that we want to stamp out the illegal market and want to reiterate to consumers that the illegal market is not, it's not a victimless place, right? And the legal market comes with protections that the illegal market doesn't come with. And it reminds me a lot of an opportunity to tour the Old Smoky moonshine distillery down in Tennessee. And someone commented, they said, well, this isn't real moonshine. I don't want to buy this. And the response back from the folks that work there was, it is real moonshine. We just regulate how it's created and it's taxed and it's safe for you to consume. Right. And so it reminds me a lot of that conversation because if you have an issue with your bookie, there are only few places you can go. If you have an issue with a legal sports wagering operator or gambling operator in the state, you can come to the Gaming Commission and we can help take care of these issues. So that was definitely, Dr. Goldberg, I even heard it in your inflection in your voice when you reported it. Something that we need to continue to monitor. So with that, there's a lot in there I could go on about, but that's definitely the piece that piqued my interest and got my ears up.
Great. Well, it's always nice to get people's attention with research because many of the people that sort of I meet on the street are like, don't tell me the numbers, just tell me the bottom line. So it's always a pleasure to present the details of the research and the findings that we have to the commission, and we are very proud to be able to contribute to the role that you play.
We are able to put policy in place to effectuate this research. So it's research in action. And Mark Van der Linden says it all the time. So thank you for the research that allows us to then maneuver. And I think that we're the best in the country at doing that. And I think it's because we have the best research in the country in this space. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Commissioners, team? Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. Thank you, Mark. Look forward to following up. So we're now going to turn to Director Bruce Ban.
Yes, we have today, Andrew will be discussing 3 sports wagering house rules with BetMGM, MGM, Springfield, and FanDuel. Andrew?
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. And before we get to the topics at hand, I'd just like to publicly say thank you and congratulations to Bruce on a well-earned retirement. And I thank you for everything that he has done for the commission and everything that he has done for me personally. Bruce, you took a chance on me 8 years ago, almost today was my interview for a gaming agent. And you've given me all the opportunities as I progress through the MGC. Really can't put my thank yous into words, but I hope you understand the positive impact you've had on not only my life, but many, many others here with the MGC. And you will certainly be missed here around the office. So thank you, Bruce. Get into our sports wagering topics today. We have a few house rules up for revision. The first, beginning on page 133 of your packet, comes from BetMGM. And before we dive into the red line, as we normally do, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to our compliance officer, Brittany Costello, who helped identify many of the concerns BetMGM is looking to a change in their house rules today. Her proactive review of the house rules led to several of the changes you'll see here. And the very first of which you can see in the red line documentation is a change for minimum length of play for football games. Initially stems from a patron dispute we received and facilitated with BetMGM. We then met with BetMGM to discuss potential changes, and they promptly addressed our concern and updated their house rules, which now also align much closer with other operators' house rules regarding this specific scenario. The change for minimum length of play just provides better clarification to the customer should a game end prematurely and what happens to certain wagers involving that game. This change is also addressed in their football section on the red line on page 146. For baseball, and I may have predicted this a few weeks ago, but we do have some additional player prop markets BetMGM would like to offer their customers, as well as a clarification to settlement for the MLB All-Star Game. The player prop markets are all head-to-head matchups where a customer could wager on which of two batters or pitchers will record the most or least of a certain stat, and they have those listed clearly with the appropriate rules for each. For basketball, they've altered a specific market for race to a certain point, now to be titled race to a certain statistic. So instead of limiting this market to a specific point, they can now offer who will get X amount of rebounds first or X amount of blocks, steals, etc. This market is just being more inclusive of basketball and the stats that may be accumulated by a player. Again, just giving their customers more opportunities for wagering. Lastly, for basketball, they've added a buzzer beater market as well as a market for college basketball conference regular season winner. Essentially, this is which team will finish in first place at the end of the regular season and prior to their respective conference tournaments. Moving on, another item that came from our independent review from our compliance team is the inclusion of certain sports that may be offered on their platform for wagering, but they did not have a sports-specific section. We did ask BetMGM to list out all the sports they may offer for wagering with each of their sports-specific sections. BetMGM promptly complied with our request, hence a few of the new sports in the red line today. These are not necessarily new sports they would like to offer their customers, but rather the inclusion of these sports rules for better clarification and understanding for the customer should a certain scenario arise from the specific event. These additions of expanded rules include biathlon events, bowling matches, and pickleball. And within those sports rules and through our review, nothing appears to be out of the ordinary or an odd market or rule we haven't previously seen. Moving down to boxing and mixed martial arts, previously, or I guess currently rather, on their current house rules, BetMGM had the two sports combined together, boxing and MMA, having settlement rules be the same for the two sports. BetMGM is now splitting up those two sports into their own sport-specific sections with further clarification for their customers. They've also identified additional markets for each event and have included those in the red line with the appropriate settlement language for each. Last few sports here with golf, hockey, and lacrosse, BetMGM is just adding a few additional markets again, just new offerings to remain competitive with their fellow operators here. And you can see those red line additions there also on page 146. And finally, the last sport is soccer. They've included 7 new market offerings, most of them for total markets where you could wager on a certain player, team, or even the teams combined for the match. And they've clearly listed out each market with precise definitions for each, and no concerns with anything listed here. And that concludes our review for the revisions of BetMGM. I believe we are joined by BetMGM Trading Compliance Analyst Zach Kraus, if you have any specific questions regarding these revisions. However, after a thorough review, as well as a proactive review by our team, our division has no reservations in approving these House rule revisions today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll start off by saying I've put a lot of tee shots in the water over my last 26 years of golfing. So that was an interesting addition to me. Commissioners, any questions for Andrew or Zach? Commissioner Hill.
Mr. Chairman, I have no questions. I actually am ready to make a motion if my fellow colleagues have no further questions.
Commissioners, I'm looking at your faces. We're all good, Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the update to BetMGM's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes 4-0.
All right. Sticking with MGM, we're moving to MGM Springfield house rules, beginning on page 152. These house rule revisions are all for their retail location at the casino in Springfield. Most of these revisions will be identical to BetMGM as they were proposed together. However, I'll still briefly go over them and point out any key differences. Starting with baseball, all of the additional player prop markets that were addressed with BetMGM are not included here today for Springfield. However, the same language for the daily specials and the All-Star game are added in the red line. For basketball, they do make the change to the race to a certain statistic instead of limiting the market to a specific point. The new market for conference regular season winner is also added here for basketball with the exact same language. Similar to BetMGM, the sports of boxing and mixed martial arts have been broken up into their own respective sports sections, again, providing more clarification and addressing certain scenarios that would need to be covered in their house rules to help their customers. Again, similarly, biathlon, bowling, and pickleball were all added to these house rules as well as part of our internal review. The markets for these three sports include the same language proposed by BetMGM. Again, this just addresses any specific settlement clarifications in the case of any real life issues that may come up during those events. The three sports of golf, hockey, and lacrosse all have the exact same language for the additional markets as BetMGM included in their revisions as well. And then lastly, for soccer, the additional markets here are identical to what was included in the BetMGM revisions. And again, that concludes our revisions for MGM Springfield, almost identical to what was submitted by BetMGM. And we still do have Zach Kraus to help answer any questions. But with that, our divisions confirm the revisions meet the requirements of 247.02, and we have no reservations in approving these changes today. Sure.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioner O'Brien?
So Andrew, my own question is, why aren't they identical?
There was one issue that was brought up, and I just started off with the football, the minimum length of play. There was an issue identified that MGM Springfield kiosks were not able to handle this sort of change. And Zach, I don't know if you're able to speak to this any further.
Okay.
Yeah, Andrew, I certainly can. Hello, everybody. Essentially, the retail trading tool is not able to settle one side of a wager and then cancel the other. So, for example, if an NFL game was to get suspended before the 55 minutes, they would not have the ability to settle the over and then cancel the under or whatever it might be. So the minimum length of play section between retail and mobile would be the only difference here in how those two are settled.
And there's no way to do it after the fact, right? There's no way to have them go up.
Unfortunately not. I know there's been, we're trying to figure out a way to potentially alleviate that or fix that. But at this time, for the submission of the house rules, there was no other way around that for this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question, Commissioner O'Brien. Anything else, commissioners? Do we have a motion?
I can move, Mr. Chairman. I move that the commission approve the updates to MGM Springfield's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0. Thank you to MGM. Appreciate you being here, Zach.
Thanks, Zach. Last house rule revision for today comes from FanDuel and begins on page 171 of your packet. Excuse me. FanDuel has addressed concerns within their sport-specific sections of baseball, basketball, mixed martial arts, hockey, soccer, and tennis. We'll start with baseball. FanDuel has revised their settlement language to provide more clarity in certain situations for rain delays. They've also added a few new markets, most notably a Maddox market based on the stat of the same name and named after baseball legend Greg Maddox. They've also added a couple new markets in total batters faced, as well as a futures market and head-to-head total base specials. For basketball, they've added settlement clarification to a few player prop markets in the scenario where the game is decided in overtime. They've addressed with the inclusion of the overtime first basket market rule. They've also added new markets and top point score markets. Just one slight revision for mixed martial arts, MMA. They've added language on how wagers will be settled for knockdowns and takedowns to now be inclusive of strikes and significant strikes, and with that language there in the red line. Throughout their hockey section, beginning around the middle of page 175, FanDuel has added much more clarification for settlement purposes. I'll run through a few of them quickly here. For season-long player props, these wagers are settled on regular season stats only and do not include any preseason or playoff games. They've broken out the minimum amount of games that must be played in a season for futures to have action, where an NHL team must complete 80 of the, I believe, 82 scheduled games in the regular season. And now included language adds that NCAA hockey must complete 20 of their regular scheduled season games, and all other leagues must complete 85% of their games for any futures to have action. And then the last two sports here for FanDuel, for soccer, they've identified several areas of concern, and they've updated several sections for further customer clarification. For example, they've updated their terminology to include more definitions. They've added additional language for shots on target and extra time markets. FanDuel has also added a new market in both team score and no draw, with the selections and settlement listed as well. And finally, for tennis, they've added clarification for very specific scenarios in the event of a player retirement or disqualification at any time during the match, and how those wagers will be settled. They've added language in the event of a delayed start that wagers will withstand as long as the event is completed within the same tournament. And they've added a new market with rules and settlement for the end of year Grand Slam special. And we welcome back FanDuel Trading Compliance Manager Chris Black to help answer any questions you may have regarding these changes today. However, our division confirms that FanDuel has met the requirements of 247.02 and has no reservations in approving these changes today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioners, questions on FanDuel's proposed changes?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the updates to FanDuel's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes 4-0. Thank you, Chris, for coming.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners.
All right. Thank you, Andrew and Crystal and Bruce Band, for all your work on this.
Thank you all.
All right. Commissioners, are we good? Do we need a short break before we move topics? All right. We're going to, if there's no break request, we're going to move on to the racing division. So for that, we're going to turn it to Dr. Lightbound. Good morning, still, Dr. Lightbound.
Good morning. Just a quick comment to Commissioner Hill's comment on the previous item about increase in racing. Just on a big picture view of it, some of the big days of racing definitely are seeing record wagering. So for instance, the Travers Day at Saratoga this past weekend, they broke their records. And you see that with things like the Kentucky Derby as well. On the day-to-day racing, that type of wagering has seen a decrease. So now I'll get to our items that are on the agenda. The first one is the request by the Standardbred owners of Massachusetts for recognition as the group that represents the breeders program for Standardbred racing in Massachusetts. I'll turn this over to Nancy Longabody, the secretary and treasurer, and she can start with her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, Dr. Lightbaum. 10 years ago, when the gaming legislation, which brought in the Racehorse Development Fund, came in, we were very excited, obviously, for the future of racing and breeding, and we created a video. I thought maybe I would show that video. I think probably the only one that's seen it, it would be Dr. Lightbaum. So I thought it would be nice, and after the video, I'll just have a few comments and updates on the evolution of the program. So if they could play the video now, that would be good.
I'm pulling it up now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
The Massachusetts Standardbred Breeding Program is on track and on the move.
We've been told for years that you're not going to be able to raise top quality champion horses if you're not in Kentucky, or if you're not with the right kind of ground or the right kind of water. Well, it's just not the case. If you believe in something and you do everything you can to make that happen, I believe there's great opportunity in this industry. Great opportunity for both big and small.
A significant increase in the number of mares registered in the program the last 2 years, coupled with higher purses in sire stakes races, has led to remarkable results in the program's first year of operation with funding from the state's Racehorse Development Fund. When the Massachusetts Gaming Commission awarded the Class II gaming license to Penn National Gaming, operating Plain Ridge, the Massachusetts Standardbred Breeding Program gained new life and financial stability. Standardbred breeding has a rich history in Massachusetts. At the turn of the 20th century, nearly every city and town across the Commonwealth had some sort of standardbred exhibition or harness racing at local county fairs. The Reedville Trotting Park just outside of Boston was the site of the sport's first sub-2-minute miles on the trot and on the pace. Harness racing along the Charles River was a popular weekend activity in the early 1900s. More recently, Massachusetts Standardbred breeding has risen to national prominence. In 2013, Royalty for Life won the sport's most prestigious race, the Hambletonian at the Meadowlands. Royalty for Life, a Massachusetts-eligible foal, was bred and raised in Belchertown at Orchard Farms.
Quarters 123 and 3 in the stretch of the Hambletonian final for $1 million. Royalty for Life getting away now. And he leaves Spider Blue Chip in his wake along with Smilin' Eli and Corky on the rail. Royalty is king of the Hambletonian. Brian Sayers, Royalty for Life. Smilin' Eli, Corky third.
On the heels of the 2013 Hambletonian, the program's momentum continued into 2014 with championship performances by Massachusetts eligibles in other state stakes programs. Not to mention Massachusetts eligible colts and fillies have been attractive to potential buyers in the sales ring. At the 2014 Lexington, Kentucky yearling sale, the Massachusetts eligible colt, the Perfect Lindy, was purchased for $320,000.
Well, I think this is a terrific opportunity, really, for Massachusetts to develop this program. It's different, it's unique, as opposed to any other program, any other size stakes program in these other states. You have more freedom to breed to any stallion, and you have more freedom in terms of your mares. You can get your mares from whatever sources that you feel are appropriate. You bring them into this state in full to top stallions all over the country, and if you leave them here long enough, they become Massachusetts bred horses, which I think it's a terrific opportunity that's only going to get better.
2015 featured highlights of its own. Another Hambletonian appearance by a Massachusetts-raised 3-year-old Wings of Royalty. 6 new stakes records were established, and absolutely stellar performances on Massachusetts Sire Stakes Champion Day were seen in all divisions, which offered purses totaling nearly $600,000.
Massachusetts always had, this core of, interest in harness racing, which continues to this day. And I think that it can only go in a good, strong direction, particularly supported by the size stakes program.
Standardbred breeding being an agribusiness, the goal of the program is to promote agriculture and open space while improving the breed and providing economic and ancillary benefits to those involved. Interest is growing and the future is bright for the standardbred industry as a whole. Breeders can invest with confidence in Massachusetts standardbreds. Massachusetts Standardbred Breeding Program, on track and on the move.
Thank you for sharing that. Reminds us all of how important the industry is here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not just in like the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or Kentucky, right?
Right.
So,
Thank you. It sure is. Just a couple, he did mention in there that there was $600,000 purses in 15. And just to mention, last year we awarded $3 million in purses. So just quite a difference there. And in 2015, there were 56 mares bred and that resided in Massachusetts. And over the past 10 years, there's been over 1,100 mares throughout totaling for the breeding program. In this past year, we had 155, which was our largest number to date. So that's really exciting for us. This season, the stake races are looking very competitive. Our publicist, Tim Bojarski, who's been with us now for several years, tracks the horses very closely. He's great at that, the 2- and 3-year-olds. And in the past 2 or 3 months, he noted that over 85 races were won by 2- and 3-year-old mass bred or eligible horses. Many of them stake races in over 6 different states at several different tracks. So that's obviously a good fact. Our organization represents the breeders who in good faith, make a long-term investment. We invest today and tomorrow for a return, which is years down the road. So it's a lot, and we love our breeders. And we're very proud of our lobbying team and our members who reached out to the legislators during this past budget debate, which helped, to keep those investments whole. In closing, I'd also like to thank the commission and the staff for taking an interest in our challenges that we had this year as well. Thank you. Any questions or comments? I'd be happy to answer them or take them.
Commissioner O'Brien.
My only comment is I think it's time for another video.
Yes, it is. Yes, I forgot to mention that. Yes, I'm sorry. That's going to be a hard one too. That was done so well. And the voice, the gentleman who did the voice, unfortunately has passed away. I mean, he was wonderful, but that is something that, yes, our directors have discussed, and we are going to pursue that soon. So.
Yeah, I think it's a compelling medium to tell your story. I do.
Okay, thank you.
And we appreciate the updated facts and figures after the video too. That was very helpful. I will say, when I pick up the program, when I do go down to PPC, I always look to see the Massachusetts bred horses, right? And look at, who the owners are and who the trainers are. And so it's always interesting to see how vibrant it is in Massachusetts.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the request of the Standard Bred Owners of Massachusetts, Inc. to be recognized as the group of representative standardbred breeders to administer the Massachusetts Standardbred Breeding Program and the sire stakes races for 2024, as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
I vote yes 4-0. Thank you so much, Nancy, for coming, and we
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Dr. Lightcomb, sticking with you.
Item is approval of the application for racing meeting license for a licensee that is a renewal, one that's already been licensed previously, such as Plainridge. If the commission recalls, last year we came up with a set of rules, 205 CMR 15, just going into the licensing process. And we updated the license application for a new applicant. And so this year, before Plainridge applies, we needed to update that application as well to reflect the changes made in those regulations. And so this was a group effort. Justin Stempek, Deputy General Counsel, is on, and Kara O'Brien, Chief of Licensing, is also on, and I'll turn it over to Justin now.
Good morning, everyone. Alex summed that up, I think, completely accurately. This is really a minor change, just adding a section requiring suitability disclosures onto the racing renewal form. And this was done, as Alex mentioned, in conjunction with the licensing department to make sure it was in line with the way that they like to proceed, and after they do a scoping survey. And we do have a timeliness issue here, just as Plainridge's renewal is coming up shortly. So we want to make sure to get this in front of everyone. But as you can see in the attached materials, we simply added one question, which is number 30, to the racing renewal application, which encapsulates the suitability requirements. But if there's any questions, we're all here to discuss.
So I just have a brief question, and that is, this is an addition, right? And since it's an addition, and it takes some time, uptake takes some time, and understanding it from a licensee's perspective. I'm assuming we've been in contact with the licensee, and they know this is coming, and they're aware. And
yes, as a matter of fact, to Steve O'Toole's credit, I had been thinking that I needed to discuss it, internally and get the new application out. But before I had even started, he brought it up and said, we're going to be looking to apply soon. So we had internal staff meetings and discussed what we thought the best way to proceed was. And I was able to go back to Steve and say that it looked like, of course, pending approval by the commissioners and anything else that the commissioners may, choose to add, that the application would remain basically identical to what they've done in the past, but the suitability would be added. And Kara may want to add to this, but she's already been in contact with PPC about how that suitability would need to be done. And I believe they've already, started the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Alex said, we've already been in communication with both PPC and Penn Entertainment, as well as GLPI, to get that scoping survey out to them. We already have a couple of responses that we're reviewing. So the process in part is already underway, in part because it's a unique year that PPC's Category 2 gaming license will also be up for renewal in 2025. So we're trying to consolidate this a little bit in terms of not asking for applications multiple times and things like that.
well, thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dr. Lightbound. Again, I think it's good that we're bringing all of these systems into conformity, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we are given as much information as we can, because it's a big change, right, to the licensee. It is a big change, and we want to make sure that we're good partners and educate folks on what they need to do. Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, could I get confirmation that any new applicant would be subject to the suitability requirements as well in that application?
Yeah, that's correct. So that was what I think Alex may have mentioned, that initially that change was reflected in the new applications, and part of the reason this is before you today was because we had to add that provision to a renewal application. So 205 CMR 15 covers both of those. So it requires suitability for any new racing licensee as well as any existing racing licensee that's simply renewing.
Thank you.
And the application for a new licensee, we kind of went in opposite order last year because we had some people that were planning on putting in a new application. We went ahead and did the new application before the regulations actually were completed. So that was done for that licensing period. We waited until once the regulations, were had gone through the whole process, and Plain Ridge had already had to apply. So, this is the first time that they will be applying under the new regulations.
Thank you for that reminder, Dr. Lightbound. Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the updated licensing application as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner, and I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Lightbound. Anything else?
No, just thank you very much for getting all this done.
All right. I'm going to ask for a brief 5-minute break before I saw Carrie pop up before we turn over to legal, if that's okay. So let's get back together around 11:55 or so. Thank you. think we can take the screen down, Connor. Sure, I see we have all the commissioners.
Yeah, Carrie is having some connection issues. There she is.
And just made it back.
All
Good
right,
timing.
good
Thank you.
timing. Excellent. Okay.
All right, thank you for that, Todd. This is a reconvening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. We're holding this meeting virtually, so we will do a roll call. Good afternoon, Commissioner O'Brien.
It says morning on my clock, but I'll go with afternoon.
We've got it. You're in the 30-second span of using that term, so I didn't know which one to go with. Good afternoon, Commissioner Hill.
I'll just say present.
And hello, Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go.
I'm in that in between. I don't want to say morning or afternoon at this point.
Yeah, so we like to joke around about the length of the meeting sometimes. So we are going to turn to legal. And I'm excited to get this. This has been on the agenda setting meetings for a while, so it's good to have this conversation. Hi, Carrie.
Yes. Hi, we are ready to go. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I see that my clock hit noon, so I will say good afternoon. So we were asked to take a look at Ohio's recent proposed regulation mandating the use of multi-factor authentication to protect access to sports wagering accounts. I just want to note at the outset that this was a joint effort with sports wagering, legal, and IT. So I'll note that Crystal Boschman from sports wagering is on the call, and also Christian Taveras from IT. So just a reminder, sort of what MFA is when we're talking about multi-factor authentication. MFA is a multi-step account login process that requires a person to use more information than just a password. So it might be a code that's sent to an email address or a phone number. It might be answering a secret question, or it might be some sort of biometric data like a fingerprint or facial recognition. The existing Ohio regulation made MFA optional, and the updated regulation, which is anticipated to go into effect on October 28th, will require MFA at each login. Under our current regulations in Massachusetts, the operators are required to make MFA optional for patrons, but it's not mandated that the operators use it. So I'll run through a little bit of the information that's in the memo, but just to sort of frame the question for today, really what we're looking for is some guidance from the commission on whether you'd like to amend our regulations to require the use of MFA. And if you do, sort of at what touch points you want to require it. So, it may be at each login, it may be at sort of intermittent logins. There may be some other touch point at which you want to require it, such as withdrawals or something like that. So in terms of Ohio, we looked at the comments that Ohio received regarding their regulation. The main comment was that MFA should not be required at every login instance, but instead should be required at initial login on a new device and then at set intervals on each unique device. So if you use two different phones and you sort of are using this app on two different phones, you would need to use MFA the first time you logged into your account on each of those phones, and then every 2 weeks again on each of those phones. So it sort of might end up on different timelines on your multiple devices. Several operators also recommended maintaining the option for players to enable MFA at every login at their own discretion. One operator also recommended including a list of approved MFA methods and sort of identified some of the most common methods of MFA within a regulation, rather than requiring that MFA methods be approved on a case-by-case basis. We looked at some other jurisdictions and found a few different approaches. Ohio is really the only state we've seen that requires MFA at each login. New Jersey, Iowa, and Pennsylvania require the use of MFA at initial login and then every 2 weeks on each unique device. Illinois and Michigan don't require the use of MFA, but they do make it optional for patrons to opt into. So that's sort of akin to our current regulations. With respect to our Massachusetts operators, all but one currently provide the option for patrons to use an MFA process when accessing their account. Ballybet is the only operator that requires the use of MFA, right now, and they do so at initial login and then every 2 weeks thereafter on each unique device. So again, that's in line with the MFA requirements in New Jersey, Iowa, and Pennsylvania. IT also took a look at best practices for us, and essentially it found that best practice is to use MFA whenever possible. The frequency is sort of the open question and can be decided on a case-by-case basis depending on the type of data that's being secured. So again, the questions for the commission today that we're looking for guidance on, and you don't have to sort of answer all these in detail today. You could sort of, just conclude that you'd like a regulation. We can come back with a few options. But do you want to mandate MFA in our regulations? If you do, at what touch points do you want to mandate that use? And again, if you do you want to sort of identify some of these pre-authorized methods of MFA within the regulation, or do you want to require any type of MFA to sort of come either before the commission or to the executive director for approval on a case-by-case basis?
Commissioner O'Brien, I see your mic's off.
Sure. So my inclination would be that we require it. I'd be leaning toward the Ohio model, but open to sort of hearing, from our specific licensees. I know some of them gave feedback in terms of why the initial and the only 2 weeks. The two questions that I have are, I'm assuming having to log on and make that conscious effort would actually be something that RG and Mark's perspective, they would want, right? That it would, the conscious effort of committing to doing this process. I don't know if there's a way to keep it open and circumvent that, right? That would then incentivize people to not log out, that would create issues. I don't think so, but that's a question that I have. And then I'm sort of looking at Christian because his face is coming up. The other question that I have is, can you be simultaneously on the app on 2 devices, or does your account have to log out on one to get on another? And that may not be something that anybody has an answer for today, but a question that I did have. But my inclination is to follow the Ohio model. A. B would be to do the sort of initial and then every frequency, maybe every week, 14 days per device.
Commissioner O'Brien, sorry, I just want to clarify. So Ohio is requiring it every login. Is that
yes?
Not the every 2 weeks?
No. So my first preference is to follow Ohio, which is every login.
Gotcha. Okay.
But my second, if the consensus is to do initial and then a frequency per device, if that is the consensus, I did have a couple questions, right, in terms of the RG impact on having to log on, which I'm assuming it's actually helpful from an RG and a perspective in terms of having to log on consciously each time. I did also have that other question of, is there a way to circumvent this a little by kind of staggering, multiple devices being open on the app at the same time?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Skinner,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Hill? Yes.
I think for the public's edification, can we talk a little bit more about why we would make any changes to this? Like, what is the impetus for us to do this? I have no problem leaving as is, but I need to be convinced a little bit more, and I think the public deserves to know why we would be making these to do so. So, Carrie, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's 2 things. So, as Commissioner O'Brien mentioned, there is an RG component here where if an underage person has access to someone's phone, there's that extra step that would be required for them to actually access the account. They may not have the information of the person who set up the account. They wouldn't have their fingerprint, of course. They would fail a facial recognition scan. So it adds that protection there. And then just in terms of data privacy and security, it adds that extra layer of protection. And I can maybe let Christian speak to this a little bit more, but I'm sure you see on any banking apps you have, things like that, they typically have either 2-factor or multi-factor authentication now, where you are required to enter more than just your password to ensure that the person accessing the account is the person who owns the account. So IT did look a little bit at best practices, and we can certainly do a little more research for you there if you'd like. But generally, what they found was just that the use of MFA really is the best practice where there's any sort of data involved.
And also, if I can just add in, Brad, part of the other reason it's here is former Chair Jed Stein and myself asked if they could look into this. So that was kind of the impetus for staff to then do a deeper dive.
I'm happy to weigh in here. I like MFA in every part of my life, and when it's optional, I actually sign up for it myself on any app that I have MFA on Amazon, for example, right? And there is some consumer protection, not in the RG piece is 100% correct, but there's also just the fact that if you have your bank account tied to something, or you have your debit card tied to something, it's good to kind of lock that up, right? And so I guess I'll start there. I am open to going further than we did when we launched, right? Which was just, make it optional. I'm okay with mandating it. I would say I would be more interested in starting with a New Jersey model. Pennsylvania was another one, Carrie.
Yes.
Right, where a new device and a 2-week check-in. But I was wondering, my question to that was, could the consumer still ask for it to do it every time, right? Because I, for example, have been on companies that allow me to do it every time, or I can set it up on a new device, and I choose to do every time. Is that something we could do?
Absolutely. Yeah, we could certainly mandate that they provide the option that patrons could opt in to do it every time.
That's interesting to me. Commissioner Skinner?
Yeah, in the spirit of, as Commissioner Hill started, educating the public as to why we're having this conversation, and why we might want to make some adjustments to the current rule, could we get an understanding of what data we're talking about outside of I know Chair Maynard mentioned bank account and not credit card information, hopefully, but bank account information. What other data are we talking about here?
Yeah, I think Crystal or Christian may be better equipped to speak to that, but essentially we'd be talking about someone having the ability to log into someone else's player account, right? So they could play with any funds they have in their account. They have access to any linked cards they have, that sort of thing. I don't know if Crystal or Christian have anything else to add there.
Would it be KYC too? The data that was put in for that?
No, I don't believe so. KYC data you can't really see that in your phone. It happens on a back end process when you're setting the account up.
Okay.
So essentially it's protecting the player account as though it is a bank account, essentially,
Exactly.
Or a credit card account.
Well, not credit cards for mass, but bank accounts.
No, right. But the protections are similar. It's the protections that we are talking about are similar to the protections of a credit card, essentially. Credit cards require, I'm not sure what the frequency is. I guess it depends on the vendor, but they require the MFA like a bank would. So I would, I hesitate to prescribe any one method, frequency rather. I do think that I do like rather giving the operators the option to propose what they think suits their customer base. I mean, I think, Carrie, you talked about that being an option of having the operators propose what they might be comfortable doing in this space. And then having the executive director or sports wagering or even our IT folks weigh in and give approval to that. The reason why I'm hesitant to prescribe any one way is that technology is always changing. And I don't want to be in a position where the commission has to amend a regulation when something new and upcoming is available on the market that might be a better process than the MFA. I don't know. I do think that it is worthwhile to require something. I just don't know what that sweet spot is going to be because, you know, I recognize the importance of protecting the player account, but I also want to acknowledge that there could be an inconvenience to patrons, and the protection, sure, will outweigh any inconvenience. No, there's no doubt about that. But just even in my own personal life, as Commissioner Maynard mentioned, we see these requirements all the time. I am not one who signs up for it to happen at each login. I just find it, again, hugely inconvenient. You know, my device is password protected, and so I think that provides a level of protection that I'm comfortable with. But you know, to each his own. So that's where I am. I do think it's important for us to require some added measure of protection here. I just wonder if you know, not prescribing it so strictly is worthwhile here.
So just to structure the conversation, thank you, Commissioner Skinner. You know, currently we do, you know, the option has to be made available to the consumers. That's where we are today, right? For level setting. And I'm looking around to make sure that's correct, and I'm seeing nods. So I guess the threshold question before we get to, you know, Commissioner O'Brien and I are talking about which models look best to us, but the threshold question is, do we have a consensus on it being a requirement and not just an option?
I'm not sure today at this point we do. I would like some more information. There are two issues that I care very deeply about. RG, of course, underage folks getting into other people's devices is something, you know, that is concerning to me. Do we have to mandate this? I'm not sure that we do, but I could use some more information. So I don't think we have a consensus today, Mr. Chairman. I'm leaning your way and Commissioner O'Brien's way for sure, but I think I'd like some more information before I give you that big push toward your side. I feel like Commissioner Skinner does. To me, it can be very inconvenient. And I trust my passwords getting into my devices as so my kids can't get into my stuff. They don't know my passwords. I never had an issue with that, but I recognize that there is an issue out there in some quarters where underaged bettors are getting onto devices that they're not supposed to be. And that's what makes, you know, me lean your way. I think I need a little bit more convincing that this should be mandated, because as we already know and have talked about, we give that option to every consumer. If they want this for protection, they can do it under our regulations. So does it have to be a mandate? I'm not so sure it has to be, because the option's there now.
So thank you, Commissioner Hill. I hear you, and I agree on the point of it would help get some underage folks off. It would just naturally help. Probably wouldn't stop the proxy issue, right? People who know that they're helping an underage person do this, but it would help in some instances, and so that is interesting. So, commissioners, would it be fair to say that it would be interesting to hear what Mark Vanderlinden had to say about this, and perhaps the operators, what they have to say? We kind of know what they said in Ohio, but what they would say to us. Things change all the time, right? Opinions change. Anything else? I'm definitely probably missing something. Anybody else we would want to hear from?
I would only wonder about the data protection group at the AG's office. We've heard that in IT, it's the better practice to do MFA. I don't know if they have sort of made a general recommendation to Massachusetts consumers. That would be helpful also, I think.
we know that at least EOTS has an opinion on this, because every time we have to get onto our state computers, we have to go through this process. So
yeah, and like providers, there are industries moving in this direction to mandate. And so that I think is part of this conversation too. Is this one of those areas that should also follow suit?
Christian, I see your mic's off. Do you have something to add?
Yes, I'd just like to add that currently under GLI 33, multi-factor is required, but it's for password reset situations or failed login situations, or if your account is locked out. We do require multi-factor for those scenarios. And part of the reason for that, it's in case your password is ever compromised, you know, if a hacker has your password, this will add another layer of protection and verify with the multi-factor process. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation, because I think what we're talking about here is for login scenarios, which is different.
It would be an expansion for sure.
Yes.
Of what already exists. Okay, that's interesting to know. Anything else, commissioners? We're going, so the feedback to legal and to Crystal and folks are to, let's get some more information.
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hi, sorry, this is Carrie. I got my Wi-Fi went down. But that sounds great. We will get together that additional info for you and add this back to an upcoming agenda.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Crystal. And Christian, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We tend sometimes to, kick things down the road a little bit. In this particular case, what I would also ask is that they're giving us information that they look at promulgating a new regulation that we can take a look at, so that should we come to consensus, that we will have something ready to go instead of having to wait for another few weeks for a regulation to come back. So I think we can go down two separate roads and get to the same place by getting more information, but also asking our legal staff to have something ready to go should we decide to go in that direction. Would that be appropriate?
I think that's a great suggestion. It sounds like Ohio has some language that can be helpful. It sounds like New Jersey and Pennsylvania has language, and then we already have an option that we're using today. And I don't think anybody wants to say we're going backwards and saying no MFA at all. So, yeah, it sounds like they can do that. Is that doable, Carrie?
Absolutely. We can prepare a couple of versions, probably depending on sort of where you land on each login or every 2 weeks or that sort of thing. So no problem at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great suggestion, Commissioner Hill. Anything else before we move on? All right. So we'll go out of order a little bit because we do plan on potentially going into executive session. Do we have any commissioner updates? Any other business? All right. So, Director Monahan, don't know if she's on. I see Kathleen, and there's Caitlin. Director Monahan.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. So we would be asking to go into an executive session to discuss the use and deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies at Encore, MGM, and PPC, specifically with regard to firearms and parking garage security. And I'm not going to read the whole bit of language, but those are the topics that we'd like to address in executive session.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, I will read the language in, and then we can make a decision on whether to go into executive session. The Commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, and General Law, Chapter 4, Section 726F, to discuss the use and deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto at Encore Boston Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Plain Ridge Park Casino, specifically with regard to firearms and parking garage security, to discuss investigatory materials related to MGM parking garage security, necessarily compiled out of the public view by the IEB, the disclosure of which materials would probably so prejudice the possibility of effective law enforcement that such disclosure would not be in the public interest, and to discuss responses to the Commission's internal control related directives submitted by Encore Boston Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Plainridge Park Casino, related to the same subject matter outlined herein.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into executive session on the matters and for the reasons just stated into the record by the chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0, and I imagine we are going to be moved over to executive session, or do we need to exit and enter in, Grace?
I think we were given a link, were we not?
Yep, you will have a link in your inbox, so we will go ahead and close out this meeting since we won't be returning. And if you do not have that link on your calendar, just shoot me an email or message me on HD Meeting and I'll get it over to you. So everyone can exit out here and join that meeting when you're ready.
I will say before we exit, happy Labor Day to the entire group. Labor Day weekend. We appreciate all the work that you do here every day. It's beneficial to everyone in the Commonwealth, and we hope that everyone has a restful and joyous weekend. We will not be returning.